There has been a case in 1986 in the Supreme Court of India, R.C. Kapoor versus Union of India, that was by 9-judge bench, a constitution bench of the Supreme Court. There the judges ruled, the constitution bench ruled, the Constitution of India is not what was drafted by the Constituent Assembly. Constitution of India is what we judges say it is. भारत का संविधान वो नहीं है जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ने बनाया था। भारत का संविधान वो है जो हम जजेस सुप्रीम कोर्ट में बैठ करके, खास करके कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बेंचेस में बैठ करके जो बताते हैं उसकी मीनिंग, दैट इज द ट्रू मीनिंग, दैट इज द ट्रू स्कोप, दैट इज द ट्रू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, स्पिरिट ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। You know Article 141 of the Constitution, 144 of the Constitution. These two articles together provide that a law propounded by the Supreme Court of India will be binding upon all courts. 144 Constitution says a law propounded by every authority within the territory of India will have to act in furtherance of the law propounded by Supreme Court. So all the authorities sitting with the executive, all the functionaries, judicial functionaries, call them judges or magistrates sitting in judiciary of any level, any tier, all are bound by an interpretation of law made by Supreme Court by virtue of these two articles, 141, 144. Then there is Article 13 in the Constitution of India. It says law, word law has been explained there in Article 13. It says what are the sources of law? The prime source of law is the legislature. And a law enacted by legislature, usages, customs, practices of course not forbidden by any law, and of course the rulings given by Court of Records. You know, in our judicial system, High Courts and Supreme Court of India, they are called the Court of Records. If they say they interpret a particular section in a particular manner, so that interpreted law is binding law, not that law which was initially given in the form of section in the Act. When there is any confusion, a word carries a different meaning in a section and it has quite different meaning in a judgment propounded, delivered by Supreme Court, then how would this conflict be resolved? The view taken, the interpretation made by the Supreme Court will be final, not the word that was employed by the legislature in particular section. And why it is so? Because it is the mandate of Article 141, 144, 13 of the Constitution of India. These 20 of articles in our Constitution, they make the things amply clear. In the event of any conflict, any confusion between the legislature given law and the interpreted law of the Supreme Court, the interpretation of the Supreme Court would be the final law. In that spirit, in 1986, they ruled that the Constitution of India is what we just say it is. हम जो कहते हैं वो संविधान है, वो नहीं जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ने बनाया। तो ये बात complete set of guidelines which have been given when a ministry has been reduced to minority. The floor test rule, non-parading of the governor. Role of governor is confined to only asking the chief minister to go to the house and prove his minority or majority. Governor himself cannot test the majority. There are no provisions in the initial constitution like that. But these are the laws, the provisions in the constitution which they have added by means of their judgments. So ultimate law comes from the Supreme Court's judgments and not from the mere legislations which have been enacted by legislatures. Let me come to why I quoted all these things. For better understanding and complete understanding of the application of the law, you must consult what are the views of the Supreme Court of India on this subject. If they have given a particular prescription in their judgment, then only that prescription is binding, not the provisions contained in their act. So let me take up another matter. Electronic evidence. What are the electronic evidences which are produced in modern times in courts? And how can witnesses be produced before courts? How their examinations, depositions may be done and recorded? Let me deal with these issues. You know, witnesses are examined generally only in regular matters. Normally in ancillary matters like bail, remand, interim injunction, violation of injunctions, witnesses are normally not examined. Though there is no prohibition in law, a witness cannot be examined and his deposition cannot be recorded at an initial stage. But generally in almost all cases, it is not done. It is only very rare when a witness is examined in any ancillary proceeding. So, how can a witness be examined during these crises nowadays? You know, video conferencing system is allowed. We are having with us a CRPC of 1973. There is a section 273 in the CRPC that was enacted in 1973. That says when a witness is being examined and his evidence is being recorded in the court of law, the accused must be present there in the court. Means the deposition of a witness can be recorded only in the presence of the accused in the court. If he is not present physically, at least his counsel should be present. So either the accused in person or a counsel engaged by the accused must be present when a witness is examined and his deposition is recorded. What will happen if the witness is in Europe and America and his deposition is to be recorded in a court in India? We are having number of judgments of the Supreme Court where they have interpreted this section 273 CRPC in a particular manner. They say that recording oral evidence of a witness by applying video conferencing method is valid. It is covered within the provisions of section 273 CRPC, despite the fact that video conferencing word nowhere occurs in section 273. But the Supreme Court has added these facilities, these means by way of their judgments. So you and those who are directly linked with the judicial system, court system, they can pray the court to apply this method if the physical appearance of the witness is not being possible because of this pandemic. So it is a transformation, it is a change in our system. We must take benefit of these laws, which have been evolved by the Supreme Court over the years. And since 2000, IT Act is there. Number of sections, amended sections in Evidence Act are there, where any evidence contained in any electronic device is admissible. What is this message which passes from one mobile to other mobile? Section 88A of the Evidence Act. It says if a message originated from one electronic device like mobile and passed to another mobile device, so there would be a presumption attached to this fact that the message originated from device A and reached device B. But certainly there is no presumption as regards to who was the maker of this message, who really passed it. That would be proved like any other ordinary fact. But message passed from this device to other device, a presumption is attached by law, 88A Evidence Act since 2002, when Evidence Act was amended by passage of this IT Act 2000. So similarly, CCTV, Twitter, this CD, audio video devices recordings, Facebooks, WhatsApp, everything, every information, every content, every fact which is contained in any sort of electronic device, they all are covered either this amended section or that amended section in the Evidence Act, and they are substantive pieces of evidence within the meaning of section 3 of the Evidence Act. People must be made familiar of these provisions so that when any exigency like this pandemic arises, they may apply this method and may lead their evidence before the court by applying this video conferencing method or any other devices which I just put it here. Allahabad High Court has issued certain sets of rules in 2013 how video conferencing would be conducted. You people must be knowing when it's a matter of a Durdant Abhyukta, a dreaded accused, and who is lodged in jail and coming out from jail is conducive to the line and situation of the state. It will not be practicable to take him from jail to produce physically before the court. Then his presence is recorded in the court for purposes of remand or for purposes of other judicial proceeding by means of video conferencing. He just sits in the video conferencing room in the district court, and the accused remains there in the jail in the video conferencing room. Nothing is conducted. This is a valid procedure recognized under law by the Supreme Court under the IT Act, under the law which has been evolved over the years. In a matter, a witness sitting in America requested a court in Delhi. He, being an old person, sick person, he cannot come to India for purposes of recording of his oral evidence. So, Supreme Court intervened in the matter and granted him permission with the direction to the judge in Delhi to record his deposition through video conferencing from America. If anyone of you wants to note this judgment, I am just referring this judgment. A witness sitting in a foreign country can depose in India. ये जरा निकाल के दो भाई, दिखाओ फॉरेन वाला कौन सा रूल. So I am just quoting whether a witness is sitting here, suppose in a court in Lucknow, his testimony has to be recorded, and the witness is sitting at his home in Lucknow itself. Still, if the witness cannot move easily to the court, he can seek permission of the court and may avail the video conferencing system and get his deposition recorded. Similarly, a witness sitting in another state, sitting in a foreign country, can do so. So these all are the remedies which are available in law. If the people are familiar, they can use this system. They are technology friendly, they can use it. And this pandemic era has given us an opportunity to make the system faster, to overcome the difficulty posed by this virus. You know, as our Honorable Prime Minister says, let us convert this crisis into an opportunity. So why not our legal and judicial system can convert this crisis into an opportunity? Let people know what are the electronic mediums which can be used for redressal of grievances. Let courts know how these facilities can be used in a best possible manner. Of course, there is issue. Courts are understaffed, ill-trained, and in many districts, necessary equipments are not there. So let us just hope one day will come when everything will be there. I was referring to a foreigner, a citizen, a witness sitting in America was allowed to depose in Delhi. So that case is state of which case you are referring? No, भाई, ये है स्टेट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र, डॉक्टर प्रफुल्ल बी देसाई. कोई नोट करना चाहे तो कर सकते हैं. AIR 2003 Supreme Court. This case was perhaps transferred from Maharashtra to Delhi Court. State of Maharashtra versus Dr. Prafull B. Desai. AIR 2003 Supreme Court 2053. This entire article together with ruling is available on my website lahelpline.in, and the name of the file is on my that website. Application of modern scientific techniques in the investigation of crimes. This is a 50-page article, and it contains all the law concerning the electronic devices, concerning the manner the method, the procedure regarding leading of evidence through electronic devices, whether they are in documentary form or in the form of oral evidence. So, the conversations between two individuals in present times have on any electronic device are often quoted and become matter of controversy. Sending a message from one mobile to other, or if someone is talking to someone and meanwhile this conversation is recorded by means of conversation recording devices, tape recorder, and even before introduction of mobile system, the early telephones were conversations on telephones were recorded. Way back in 1978, when there was no IT Act, there were no amendments in the Evidence Act of 1872. Then R.K. Malkani, State of Delhi, there is a case, 1978 Supreme Court. In that case, Supreme Court had given 6 guidelines. When a conversation between two individuals having taken place on telephone would be treated admissible in the court. Anyone, if interested to know the nuances of these guidelines, he may consult that article of mine on my website, lawhelpline.in, Investigation of Crimes by with the help of electronic devices. It's available there. Supreme Court has given it. It will take much time if I go into all those details. So then, what will happen to the family court during this pandemic period? There is a matrimonial dispute. If it lingers, unnecessary delays take place in the disposal of a matrimonial case pending in a family court, then the chances of the lives of the parties getting ruined will be higher. Such are the cases where some sort of urgency, some sort of expediency is involved. In such cases will be fast-tracked. They cannot be treated and taken like civil suits, which are filed in one generation, matured in another generation, and their fruits, the decree is reaped by the third generation. This is happening in our country in the matter of civil suits. And if that dilatory course is allowed in a matrimonial dispute, a dispute by the spouse is filed in this life, the next generations will fight it out, mature it, and judgment will come only in third generation. So what will happen to their lives? They will be nowhere. They will stand deprived of all their fundamental rights, human rights, and everything. If a law gives any right to a person, and that right is violated or harmed, and it is not restored to the aggrieved person, it's not redressed, then the Supreme Court of India says that such violation of rights amounts to deprivation of fundamental rights within the meaning of Article 21 and also of the human rights which that person possesses. Part 3rd of the Constitution of India guarantees different types of fundamental rights. In our country, all these fundamental rights which are contained in Part 3rd of the Constitution, outside the Constitution, they are known as human rights. The UNO declared 30 articles containing 30 types of human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, declared on December 10, 1948 by the UNO. India is one of the 93 countries who were the signatories to that Charter of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A promise was made by our country to protect these human rights in its domestic laws, in its constitution and other laws. So that was the reason those human rights were retained in our domestic constitution in the form of Part 3rd of the Constitution. ये जो मूलभूत अधिकारों का जो अध्याय है, उसको हम डिटेल गिनाएं तो बहुत सारे फंडामेंटल राइट हैं. तो राइट टू लीगल एंड जुडिशियल रेमेडीज इज आल्सो ए फंडामेंटल राइट. Article 39A of the Constitution was added by the Parliament in the year 1976 by way of amendment. What was the object behind adding this article, new article in 76, Article 39A? To ensure that if a person, because of ignorance, because of poverty or any other infirmity, is unable to seek redressal of his grievances through court of law, he is unable to seek protection of his rights, fundamental or civil laws, civil rights. So, state should come forward. The National Legal Services Authority, this State Legal Services Authority, District Legal Services Authority, Tahsil and Taluka Legal Services Authority, they have been constituted under that Article 39A created legislation. Legal Services Authority Act, Legal Services Authority Act 1987 was enacted by Parliament to implement the mandate of Article 39A of the Constitution. And under this 1987 legislation, these statutory bodies were created to ensure that no needy, no poor, no ignorant person is deprived of his right to seek redressal from courts. So remedies are available if any person, because of poverty, ignorance, is finding himself as helpless in this pandemic era. He can go to the District Legal Services Authority, can make verbal submissions to the secretary sitting over there, who is a judge of the Civil Justice Senior Division. He will entertain his request. He will provide him legal assistance of some advocate, services of advocate, free of cost stationery, free of cost court case. Everything will be borne only then by the state, because it is the bounden duty of the state to ensure that no citizen remains deprived of the remedies provided in law and in judicial system. So, a lot many things are there, and devoting 2 minutes more to some other aspects, I would love certain queries from your audience. A law of limitation. People are locked in their homes. Many of them are unable for various reasons to go to the court, to approach the lawyer, to file their cases within the limitation periods provided in law. The Supreme Court some 2 months back has ruled in a case, if a person approaches the court during this pandemic era beyond the limitation period provided in law, then the courts cannot refuse to entertain his application and petition on the ground of delay and limitation. Supreme Court says that the period covered during this pandemic times should be excluded from the ordinary limitation period provided in law. It's a big remedy, a big facility concession which the Supreme Court has given. The court should be reminded when a delayed application is moved. The Honorable Court, look here, Supreme Court has waived the delay to be applied in them, to be uniformly applied all over India. This pandemic period will be discounted from the ordinary limitation period, and petition would be entertained and heard on merits, delay apart. Otherwise, also in normal working days of the courts, when there is no crisis like today, there also courts are required to apply a liberal attitude in condoning the delays and prefer to decide the matters on their merits. Talking, a procedure is a servant to the justice. It cannot be a tyrant. It cannot be a master, controller of the judicial system. It is there to aid the court, to help the delivery of justice, not to scatter or obstruct the course of justice. The procedure, including limitation, which is a rule of procedure, can never be allowed to come in the way of dispensations of justice. Right of justice should be met, not the limitation-oriented procedural rules. Let me come to other point. Arguments. How can arguments be made? Submissions can